Good morning and welcome to our Sunday service. My name is Sarah Lindsay and I'm the minister of the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. A hearty thank you as always to our entire team that makes these Sunday morning services possible. Jack Lohr, Kristen Plumley, Carol Wolf, Jeannie Namitz, Ron Levy, and Benny Crespo. The Unitarian Society of Ridgewood was founded in 1896 and has, for these last 124 years, been a beacon of liberal faith. Our congregation is a welcoming one, whatever your gender, sexual orientation, education, history, race, ethnicity, or age, we welcome you in your wholeness. Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal faith that does not ask us to believe any particular thing about God and the meaning of existence. What we do ask here at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood and in Unitarian Universalism in general is that you engage in thoughtful consideration of your own life, your beliefs, your actions, your visions for what may be. And we do share, along with other Unitarian Universalists around the world, a belief in the interdependence of all that is, in our shared past, our shared future, and a belief in the power of love to create a world that is just, with liberation and freedom and safety for all people. Email is our primary method of communication in this time of quarantine and physical difference. So please, if you aren't getting our Wednesday e-blast or the daily listing of Zoom room offerings, contact the office. Also, be in touch if you just want to learn more about the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood or about Unitarian Universalism in general. There's plenty of information on our website at uuridgewood.org, or you can email us at 113cottage@gmail.com. I have one new Zoom room to announce today. You have seen it in yesterday's email. We're having a sing-along today at 3:30, led by a wonderful guest host, Angie McWilliams. An e-blast will go out at about 2 p.m. today with all the details about how to log into that cool new experience. Self-governance through democratic means is one of the foundational principles of UUism dating back centuries. It's called congregational polity, and it means that once a year around this time, the membership of our congregation gathers to make important choices about who we are, who we want to be, and how we want to be. This is that time. Today is our annual meeting. If you are a member, I implore you to stay for that meeting so you can exercise your right to vote and determine the future of this congregation. We need 90 members to make a quorum or thereabouts, and that means we need you. If you're not a member, I encourage you to stay anyway. You will gain a deeper understanding of Unitarian Universalism and how our congregations run. After the service ends, there will be some instructions for that meeting. This will be the first time for all of us conducting an annual meeting online, so please have patience and I promise we'll all get through it. We may be physically distanced and learning new ways to handle our commitments to our ideals, but handle them we will. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Unitarian Universalism shares a belief in our oneness and a belief in hope through love. Our flaming chalice stands as a symbol of those shared beliefs. This flame represents the spark of the sacred in each of us, the unique individual in each of us, the possibility in each of our lives. If you have a chalice at home, we invite you to light yours as we light ours. Please join in the words that will be on your screen. We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action as we gather together in the circle of community.
Now come, take a deep breath and listen. Try to find a still and quiet place in your mind and in your body. aware that although we are in separate spaces, we are sharing this moment together. Our hearts similarly full of fear and hope, our minds focused on the same words, our bodies engaged in the same rhythms, ourselves part of the same community. Take a deep breath and listen. If you entered our Zoom Sunday service space before 10 a.m., you may have heard Ron playing a variation on the Star-Spangled Banner. The adaptation was done by Chaz Hathaway, and Ron chose it because this morning, I'll confess, unbeknownst to me before Ron mentioned it, today is Flag Day. It commemorates the day in 1777 that the US adopted the Stars and Stripes flag. Now, I'll be honest, and I'll tell you that when Ron proposed playing this, I at first said no. I have some mixed feelings about my nation right now, as I imagine many of you might as well. We are in a moment of righteous unrest as protesters continue to fight for justice and true freedom and equality for people of color. I recently also read a piece about the promise of COVID relief aid to the indigenous people of this nation, a promise the government has yet to make good on. And I'm sure you read, as I did just this past week, of the rollbacks on health protections for transgender folks in this country. This past Friday also marked a year since the horrific shooting at Pulse, the gay nightclub. Day after day, there are news stories about all the ways our government has gone against values deepest to my heart, and ways that our people have too. All over, we can spot folks using the flag to promote injustice and a valuing of individual rights over the common good. At the same time, more and more people in this country are waking up to the historic ways that we have failed to uphold the ideals stated in our founding documents. So it's fair to say I was having conflicting feelings about that flag and whose flag it really is. This is Flag Day, but more importantly, this is Pride Month. This is Flag Day, but more importantly, this is a time when we loudly proclaim Black Lives Matter. This is Flag Day, but more importantly, we're in the middle of a pandemic that has changed all our lives. This is Flag Day, but more importantly, this is an opportunity for us to give deeper consideration to who has belonged under that flag historically, and the kind of community we want to build into the future. We can do that, build new communities on the national stage, but also in our local spaces, and right here at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. Who do we want to be? What do we want the future to hold? What do we have to offer the world? Today, we're celebrating our community at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood, offering thank yous, having our barbecue virtually, and engaging in the work of our annual meeting. There is much to be grateful for in this community we have all chosen to be a part of, and there's always work to do figuring out how to be more welcoming, more inclusive. And right now, there is also the ongoing work of figuring out how to stay a community that is strong and ensure that all those touched by this congregation remain healthy and connected. So welcome to this morning, a morning of work, of celebrating, of wondering and envisioning for the future.
Good morning. I'm Dawn Walter. I'm the Vice President of the Board of the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. After service, as Sarah said, there's going to be an annual meeting, and we really need everyone to be, who has the ability to be on camera, we need you on camera, because we're going to vote by show of hands. I know that some of you don't want to be on camera because you don't think your hair looks good, so in solidarity with you, I'm going to have the worst hair. Every Sunday that we gather, could really be worse. It's as worse as I can get it. Every Sunday that we gather, we ask for an offering to support the work of this congregation. Our mission statement here at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood is to grow in mind and spirit, to act with love for justice, and to transform ourselves and the world. Transformation. Our mission is no less than the transformation of our own minds and hearts and of the entire world. As you know, that takes work. It takes all those volunteer hours you put in. It takes passion and the sharing of your gifts. It also takes money. We have been so grateful for the way you have all showed up during this strange time, with your hearts and minds ready to grow, with your talents helping us continue our work, and with your generous offerings. If ever there was a time for transformation in our nation, this is it. This moment will ask a lot of us, and we will stay committed to what Ridgewood UUs have always sought: a world of justice, freedom, and equality, a transformed world. We know that in this moment there are among us those who are unable to financially support the congregation and instead find themselves in need of support. If that is you, please let us help. Reach out to Reverend Sarah or the caring teams. For those of us who can give, please keep doing so with the mission of this place in mind. Your gifts are truly appreciated. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Coming off the heels of that delightful song, I wanted to take some special time today to offer some gratitude as this particular congregational year draws to a close. This will have been my third year here at the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood, and gosh, what an unexpected one. More than perhaps any other year, this one has called on you, the congregation, to step up in so many ways. Collaboration has been even more vital than it ever was. Hard decisions have been even harder. The work has been more and more delicate and more emotional, and we have all been doing it under the specter of the coronavirus and lots of uncertainty. So I just needed to say today that I am so grateful for all of you, for the way you care for each other, for the way you have responded to these challenging times and hung together and been there for each other. I do need to offer a few very special thank yous, though, on behalf of the entire congregation to the Board of Trustees, the Safe Congregation Response Team, and the Committee on Shared Ministry. Those three are also known as the Circle of Governance and Wellbeing under our new system. The board has moved through this time with commitment. So many extra meetings, and they showed up, making difficult decisions with as much care and thought as I have ever seen a board offer. They have wrestled and taken seriously their duties to this congregation. I'm so proud of them and so grateful to them. And Sally, wherever you are, I can't see you on my screen, especially to you, thank you for your leadership. The Safe Congregation team has also risen to this moment with extra meetings and time spent in discernment and conversation about how best to keep all of us safe. They have weighed the challenge of being apart with the need to do everything we can to ensure the safety of everyone who steps foot in our buildings. They deserve our gratitude for the difficult conversations and the decisions they've had to make. Thank you, Safe Congregation Response Team. Lastly, then, to the Committee on Shared Ministry, a shout out to you. You have offered perspective, support, challenge, and a reminder at all times of the central vision of what the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood is. So thank you, COSM members, for your guidance, for your commitment, and for your work. Jeannie has some thank yous as well.
Thank you, Reverend Sarah. You know, it can be hard to remember that 7 months out of our year were spent face-to-face. And I would like to take a couple of moments to thank all the types of volunteers who created a vibrant religious education experience for our children and youth. Thank you to our volunteers who joined staff in the nursery and all of our teachers teaching Sunday mornings, and to our OWL facilitators who provided faith-based sexual education, and to our Second Sundays youth advisors who created a space for our youth to determine activities and service, and to our COA teaching team who transitioned to online class with nearly 100% attendance, and to our CYRE committee who provided January Justice and many activities outside of our RE classes. For our COA mentors who spent time with our youth and helped them write their credos. For all the congregants who stepped up this year, building campfires, creating handmade tiles for children to decorate, offering yoga, dance, songs, and games to our children in person and recently virtually. For the committee members who visited the COA class to share the many ways congregants provide service to others. I actually did a count as I was assembling this full panoramic of volunteer service, and it came out to about 45 people, although I'm probably missing people, which is about the number of children we have, children and youth. And I was reminded of that old African proverb, it takes a village. And here we are with volunteers almost on a one-to-one basis for our children and youth. And in our little story today, we realize that we're all planting something different, and that it's a metaphor for congregational life and for religious education. But what binds us together is our mission of transforming self and other. The preacher and writer, Reverend Frederick Buechner, speaks about service as the place where your deep gladness meets the world's deep hunger. How fortunate we are that your gladness meets the world's deep hunger. I am so grateful, and I thank all of our volunteers once again. Thank you.
And I have one last set of vital thank yous, and that is to the Sunday Services team. Jeannie, Ron, and Benny, staff members, you have taken on more than usual, learning what you needed to and offering everything you have. Thank you. It is a pleasure to work with you. And then to Jack Lohr, Kristen Plumley, and Carol Wolf, week after week after week, you have worked tirelessly behind the camera or in front of it. You have given of yourselves and your gifts selflessly, volunteering hours upon hours. Without you, I honestly don't know what would have happened these past few months, other than being certain that our Sunday service experience would have been infinitely less rich and infinitely more stressful for me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the entire congregation. My heart is full of gratitude this morning, even as we continue to struggle with so many things. So thank you to all of you for showing up week after week and for doing everything you can. With gratitude on our minds and in our hearts, I invite you into our time of reflection, meditation, and prayer. We take this time to recognize that quiet can be hard to find, but is vital. We take this time to recognize that being together, slowing down, helps to ground us and center us for the challenges we face. So please find as comfortable a situation for your body as you can, and take a deep breath. Inhale slowly through your nose, and exhale slowly through your mouth. Take a deep breath. This morning, we breathe deeply with gratitude. We give thanks for the family and friends who keep us company over the phone and over Zoom, those whose laughter keeps us sane. We are grateful for love and for friendship. We give thanks for the communities we belong to who have supported and looked after us, whose worry helps us know that we are loved. We are grateful for compassion and care. This morning, we breathe deeply, not only with gratitude, but also with love. We come with love for all those still facing injustice, for our transgender siblings whose health and safety is being put at risk by our leadership, for all of our LGBTQ siblings whose lives we celebrate this Pride Month, but who still face prejudice at home and in society. For our Black and Brown siblings, for our Indigenous siblings, for people of all colors whose lives continue to be seen as expendable. We come with love for the full range of humanness and wholeness, longing for a day when every person will be embraced and celebrated. We come with love for all those working for change, for protesters in the streets marching for freedom and for the safety of Black lives, for those trying to turn the tide of systemic racism and police brutality, who remind us all that we have fallen short of our ideals for too long. We come with love for activists, protesters, marchers, and all those who not only long for justice and equality, but work hard for it. This morning, we breathe deeply, not only with gratitude and love, but also with determination. We come with determination that although we are beginning to reopen, we will not grow complacent. We will not relax in our vigilance to keep the most vulnerable among us safe. We will care for one another, look after one another. We come with determination to keep the downward trend in motion through masks and distance and whatever it takes. Gratitude, love, and determination will be necessary in the months to come. Remembering all there is to be thankful for, offering to all love without reservation, and determined to make it through this as best we can. May we find time each day to breathe deeply, to offer gratitude, to dwell in love, and to recommit ourselves fully. So may it be. Back before I had children, I would often spend whole days not speaking to a soul. I lived alone. I was in grad school. I could spend a day reading, working in the library, writing, or just hanging around without necessarily hearing anyone else on earth say my name and without speaking anyone else's. Especially in the days of email and text, business could be done without talking. Now, I know that many of you won't believe me, but in my heart of hearts, I'm an introvert. I loved days like that. To this moment, I long for days like that. I find it invigorating to be without human contact. So I remember laughing in the early stages of the quarantine when I kept reading things online about how we should check on our extrovert friends because they might be struggling. And I would think, sure, but being an introvert locked inside with 5 other people is hardly a day at the beach. The reality is that introvert or extrovert, isolation has been a challenge. And it has made plain things I never realized before. For example, I've had plenty of meaningful interaction with the people closest to me, my parents and my children. And I have predictably been irritable because I've lacked enough alone time to rejuvenate in meaningful ways. But I never guessed how much I would miss the casual interactions of life. So joking with the cashier at the grocery store or making small talk on the bus, running into acquaintances and offering friendly hellos. Those little chance encounters for me have been really missing. I've missed those. There are some things that we could have predicted for all of us, right? There are folks whose work lives shifted and they've experienced a loss of a sense of purpose or identity. There are those of us whose family interactions have had to shift drastically, and we might be feeling that those relationships are different or unsteady in unpleasant ways. All of us are under the intense stressors and trauma of a life drastically changed while facing what feels like a great deal of unknowns. Many of us are confronting overloads on our brains as we attempt to track and maintain through online channels, work, family, and social relationships. Many of those are maintained through their own natural rhythms usually, but now require all sorts of planning, much more work. We may find ourselves then lacking focus and concentration, our attention spans diminished, our memories impaired. We might be struggling to make decisions. There are many ill effects of intense stress, many ill effects of trauma, and many ill effects of soul-changing times, and we are in soul-changing times. A long time ago, not quite 20 years, but a long time ago, a divinity school colleague of mine shared with me a piece of research-based information, and I say it that way because I admit to you, I have no idea where he learned it, and it's entirely possible that it was anecdotal and not from a peer-reviewed study, but it rang true for me, and I want to share it with you today. The tidbit he passed on was that humans typically need 7 significant touches a day to feel secure and loved and grounded and well in the world. Those touches might be different for different people. One person's hug is another person's high five. And of course, there are those among us who don't thrive on touch at all, but for many of us, this is an area of challenge that we haven't talked much about, but that is very real. Many of us have had our worlds of touch changed in the time of physical distance. For those of us who have touch as a primary way of expressing and receiving support, that loss is painful and critically important when it comes to mental health. Think for a moment about how many little ways touch used to come into play in the course of a typical day. Hugs with family or friends, handshakes, even the feeling of standing or sitting close enough to another person to feel their bodily presence on Sunday mornings or on the subway. All of these physical, tangible ways that we used to be reminded that we were not alone in the world. Jules Evans, a writer in the field of psychology, notes that this moment has made plain a deeper problem. Evans writes, COVID didn't just exacerbate a pre-existing mental health crisis, it massively exacerbated a pre-existing touch deficit. He argues that in our Western culture, we have leaned so hard into a sense of individualism and independence that we've created this expectation of living alone and functioning alone and bubbles around each other that can lead to lives of loneliness lived without touch. He goes on to note that, quote, when we are hugged, or even when we give hugs, we activate a very old mammalian mind-body circuit called the parasympathetic nervous system. We switch from the flight or fight mode of stress and vigilance and into the tend and befriend response. Our blood pressure falls and breathing slows. Adrenaline levels drop in our bloodstream, endorphins and oxytocin are released, our stomach starts to digest, and our immune system receives a boost. We relax. The defensive walls of our ego soften. We allow ourselves to blur into the other, to melt into the hug. We put down the weight of our lonely self for a moment and rest in the tribe, the primate troop. The hug is the ancient primal mechanism for emotional regulation, trauma recovery, and social bonding. So Evans is noting that touch, our physical body in space interacting with other physical bodies in space, contributes to our understanding of who and what we are and where we belong. He goes on in this particular piece to tell his own story of isolation during quarantine and how hard the time he spent in solitude was. And he calls on us to create something new on the other side of the pandemic, a world with more touch, of course, where it is wanted, a world with a deeper understanding of the need for human contact, an understanding that might inform everything from the way families cohabitate or not, to what we do in prison systems. And of course, for right now, he encourages a variety of ways to achieve that sense of your alive physical body in space. If you're quarantining with others or with pets, get those touches in. Hugs, handholds, whatever works for you, but make a conscious effort to get 7 in a day for 1 week and see what happens. That's my challenge. If you are living with a pet or another person, 7 significant touches a day for the next week, and then let us know what happens. But then not all of us are quarantining with others. Not all of us have pets. Evan says, though, if you are alone, there are still ways to remind your body that it isn't alone. Open a window and listen to the birds sing. Feel the sunshine on your face. If you can get outside and feel the earth in your palm, do, or go out in the rain and the wind. Let your skin experience the sensations that remind it is alive, it is in space with others, with living things, with all living things. And maybe now is the time to consider condensing your quarantine experience. If you've been alone, perhaps there's a family member or friend you could begin to quarantine, yes, this is a word, quarantine with, so that your circle expands a little and you can experience touch. Obviously, only do this if it can be done safely, if you've all been quarantining carefully and you can be sure of each other's caution moving forward. Because here's the thing, isolation is hard. I don't think there's anyone who would dispute that. And although things seem to be reopening, isolation isn't over. I know there's a celebration coming in Ridgewood for the easing of restrictions and the reopening of life to some extent, but we can't just go back to normal. We can't go back to normal because we don't really know where we are in this pandemic. We don't know what's coming next, except we know that if we open recklessly, we'll be right back into the major and extreme lockdown we've had. We can't go back to normal because it isn't safe to go back to normal. But I will say this, all throughout this crisis, I have also felt that I don't want to go back to normal. I don't know if you've been feeling that too. There are certain things I miss. Silence, casual encounters, touch from those outside my immediate family. But I don't want to go back to normal as we knew it. Because if normal means going back to the systemic and systematic oppression of Black people, if normal means treating the indigenous peoples of this land as if they were guests here, if normal means allowing toxic visions of masculinity to create generations of men who exploit, if normal means feeling okay about shootings at gay nightclubs where 49 people's lives were taken in one night, if normal means allowing children of this nation to grow up in such poverty that they don't know where their next meal is coming from, if normal means treating the earth like our plaything, if normal means not living up to the promise of our human sacredness and the possibility of the highest ideals of this nation, then I don't want to go back to normal. I want to see my friends. I want to hug my neighbors. I want to hug all of you. I want to feel the closeness of our community. I want my children to be able to go back to school. I want to stop worrying about every touch of every object and every breath from someone else. I want all those things. I want the stress to ease. I want the soul to mend. I want to feel like myself, and I want the people around me to feel like themselves. But I want a new normal. I want a normal where world community is prized, where safety and security, health and love, support and embrace are given to all people. I want a normal where opportunities actually are equal for all of us. I want a normal where women live without fear of harm. I want a normal where children are cared for and protected and families of all kinds are supported. I want a normal where Indigenous lives, Black lives, LGBTQ lives are protected, valued, honored, and celebrated. I want a normal where it doesn't matter how a person dresses or what gender they are, they know love and kindness and compassion. I want a normal where the ideals we hold dear, justice, mercy, equality, compassion, liberty, and love are the ideals that everyone strives toward in every decision we make, every act we engage in. The good news is that all the data we have about isolation suggests that it might be possible to create a new normal. In studies of astronauts and other scientists who have spent prolonged periods in small group isolation, researchers have noted 4 stages. In a piece from late April identifying which stage Australia was in at the time, James Purtill quotes Dr. Kimberly Norris, who says that there is an initial point where there is panic buying and confusion, and then a honeymoon period where it feels novel and different to stay at home. But then there's a third quarter. Quote, time grows sludgy. The days blur into the nights and the weekdays into the weekends. You're no longer telling people you'll learn Italian. Then there's a 4th stage, the stage of return. But that third quarter of isolation, according to studies, is the hardest. It's marked by depression, by cliquishness, by worry and fights, and a general diminishing of personal relationships. Irritability gets sky high in the third quarter. With this current crisis, it's very hard to know where we are. That third stage is called the third stage because invariably it occurs about 2/3 or 3/4 of a way through a mission that involves isolation. So month 4 of a 6-month mission, month 8 of a 12-month mission, but we don't know a timeline for this particular mission. So we don't literally know what time we're in, but for me, time has certainly gotten blurry. Irritability can be high. And the hint of a promise of reopening and the start of it in some places sure as heck makes me feel like we're in the third quarter. And this could end up being the hardest moment yet for many reasons. Reopening feels close but could be taken away at any moment. We might have developed a false sense of security and it might create laxness that actually causes a spike. And so we might not be as close to the fourth quarter as we think, and that can be hard to bear. But here's what I found comforting in Purtill's article. About half of the folks who isolate in the Arctic and nearly all astronauts who isolate on missions to space want to do it again. Despite how hard isolation is, they want to do it again because overall, something good happens. According to Dr. Norris, quote, those who have been through a period of isolation value the experience for what it has taught. They have a better idea of their personal values and they're more committed to acting on them. When people have space to sit back and think, it allows them to figure out what's important to them. So this moment feels pregnant with possibility. The studies show that people come out the other side of isolation more engaged in their relationships, more meaningfully engaged in their communities. And men become more social in the wake of isolation and women more sure of themselves. Good can come on the other side of these 4 stages of isolation. So whether we're in the third quarter or beginning to come into the fourth, I'm in the business right now of imagining and working, and I invite you into that with me. Imagining what that new normal might be, what that good aftermath might be, but then also thinking about what it will take to get there. I'm wondering about what seeds we need to plant so that we can harvest change in the months to come. And today, here's what I think. I think it will take all of us sticking with isolation and distancing, even when the temptation is to stop, even when it seems like things are getting better and we can loosen up a little. Because if we move too soon, we'll be back where we began. It will take all of us finding ways to keep our souls intact as we face the struggles of this time. Soothing and mending our own souls, reaching out when we need help, feeling the sunshine on our faces, retaining our sense of our human place wherever we can. It will take all of us staying in community just as we have been, calling each other, supporting each other, showing our love for one another in the ways we can safely do right now, with calls and video chats and flowers and strawberries and cards and whatever else we can so that this community stays strong. It will take all of us remembering the good things that we want to retain from the old normal and building those up, because the old normal wasn't all bad. And the right now normal is seeing some real potential. We're seeing demilitarization and defunding of the police. The potential outcomes of all of these demands for justice are limitless. It will take all of us not losing sight of or getting tired with fighting the bad of the old normal and the bad of right now. Because moves are still being made to diminish democracy and to eliminate rights and oppress various groups. We all have to keep our eyes open and our eyes on the prize. And more than all this, it will take communities like ours, ones that share values of love and interdependence. It will take communities like ours going out beyond ourselves to lead the way in creating a new reality that truly lives justice, mercy, equality, and love. Right now, that's what I think our call will be, to push ourselves even more to be out there, beyond our walls, helping build the world we want to see. We have to make that move from strong, beloved community here to strong, beloved community out there. I love this community. I can't wait to be in person with you again. I can't wait to shake your hands and hear your laughter and your singing voices and to hug you. And I know that time will come. And I want us all to be ready to be forces of good in that time. I want us to get there with as many of us as intact as possible. Hearts grateful for the community that has sustained us, eager to do what must be done to create a new normal. For now, though, we'll remain virtual, even for our barbecue. Benny? Wait for it. There.
Hi, this is Ed Wardell, and I want to welcome you to the 2020 USR Barbecue. This year's barbecue is virtual, certainly different than in years past, but with the same sense of hope and celebration for successfully completing a very challenging year at USR. So please, fire up your grill and celebrate as we review the year while listening to the Porch Cut Barbers. Be safe, be well, and may the force be with us all.
Keep smiling through just Hello? Hello? Hi, it's Kristen. I was just wondering, are there any burgers left? Meatloaf, of course. Or I'll take a hot dog. How about a quinoa salad? Oh, or that Jell-O mold shaped like a human brain. Thank you. Bye. Hello? Is anyone there? Hello? Is there any pizza left? Please call.
A hearty thank you to Marshall for that. In a typical year, this service would mark the end of the congregational year and a move to a more reduced summer schedule. This will not be the case so much this year. We'll continue to offer programming every week, have Sunday services just as full and vital as we have been having. We'll continue to be here for each other all throughout the summer. Whatever the challenges of this time have been for you, reach out. We are here. Whatever the struggles you face, know that the time will come. We will meet again. We will share a song, a meal, a hug, and then, as now, we will work for something brighter and better, animated by love. So may it be.